Mrs. Orno, so I'm going to start. Well, as I talked to you yesterday, I think you've gotten a lot of these facts, but we can clear a few things up for you here this morning, I hope. About 12:45 yesterday, officers received a call out on Doe Lane of a person that had been stabbed. When the officers arrived, rescue was there treating a man that had been stabbed multiple times, who was then transported to the hospital with life-threatening injuries. I've been told this morning that it looks like he's hopefully going to make it, so that's good news there. That individual gave the officers the identification of the person that stabbed him, gave him the name of Brandon Peters, and told him where he lived at the end of this road. Kind of goes down, it's a dead end. So the officer that was the primary on the call, Officer Stephen Brown, along with his backup officer, waited until they got, I don't know who got there first and who got there second, but there ended up being 3 officers there. The 2 officers and then their sergeant, Sergeant Art Webb. So once the 3 of them were there, they devised a plan to go down and contact the suspect, Mr. Peters, which is what we teach them to do, is to have a plan to do that. So when they approached the trailer that Mr. Peters was in, the plan was that Officer Brown would provide lethal cover. In other words, he would have his firearm out. Sergeant Webb would be less lethal cover. He had his taser, and Officer Navarro was then along with them. When they went to the trailer and knocked on the door, and an older gentleman came to the door, said he was not involved in the altercation, but that told him that Brandon Peters was inside. He came out. The 3 officers walked in. As they walked in, they could see, after they got in, they could see Mr. Peters on a couch in a room just off of that first room. As they started approaching, Mr. Peters jumped from that couch with a knife in his hand, and these are 2 pictures of that knife, and immediately charged directly at Officer Brown. As I mentioned, we have this plan for lethal force and less lethal force. But in this case, this individual, I don't want people to think that this was somebody standing there with a knife and this was a standoff where we're telling him to drop the knife and whatever. This individual immediately charged at Officer Brown and attacked him. There was a little bit of an altercation there between Officer Brown and the suspect, where Officer Brown, I believe, tried to kick the suspect away. He struck him with his rifle trying to get him away, and each time he did this man kept coming back. Officer Brown fired his rifle once, had a malfunction with his rifle. He cleared that malfunction. He fired a second time with it. Each time between the shots, according to the testimony, the subject there would be a shot fired which would back him up a little, and then he immediately came right back. So there were 2 shots with the rifle, and he had another problem with it, so he changed to his Glock pistol. After the second shot, Mr. Peters actually went down and was trying to get back up with his knife again, and that's when Officer Brown shot him a 3rd time with the pistol. As I told you yesterday, suspect was killed there, died at the scene. Officer Brown was injured and was transported to the hospital, where he was treated and released. We're really pretty lucky that it wasn't any worse. I don't know if any of you are alive or not. I'm going to turn this picture around. I actually brought you a picture of the injury to Officer Brown. I know sometimes when we talk about this stuff and we say that someone has been stabbed or cut or whatever, people think there's maybe a paper cut on their arm, but that's what was done to the officer's arm right there. One of the things that I think that you can look at is this knife that we have. I guess it would be like a kitchen knife, a paring knife of some sort. You can see the overall length of the knife's about 8 inches. It's not a really big knife, but it can certainly do an awful lot of damage. That's a pretty nasty wound to the left forearm of that officer. And so, thankfully in this case, the officer, prevailed, and he was not hurt any worse than he was. So, anybody have any questions? Maybe I can help you with.
No questions? Sorry, hold on, I'm trying to get it together.
Yes, sir. Go ahead while you guys looking.
Your name and who you're with?
Yes, sir. My name is Topher Sanders. I'm with the Times-Union. You mentioned that the original victim, the stabbing victim, that his condition is looking like he's going to live. Is there a condition change, like critical?
I haven't gotten that. I asked this morning. Yesterday what they told me was that it was life-threatening and that he was in surgery. So I asked this morning, and he seems to be a little better than that, is what I was told. So I don't know where we are. Yes, ma'am.
Chris Barrento with Channel 4. Do we know if the original victim and the officer were stabbed with the same knife, or do we know if there were...
Well, I think that's the only knife that we recovered there. You know, one of the other things, after they got it all done last night and they were in the ME's office, they found that the suspect also had several what appeared to be self-inflicted knife wounds. He had several cuts or little stabbings, you know, to the left side of his chest, a little cut on the left side of his neck, and his left wrist was cut. That all seemed to be self-inflicted. So, you know, I don't really know what all was going on there. I asked specifically if that had to do with the altercation with the first man, but apparently that they were there together. They were stripping copper wire, and according to the victim that's at the hospital, he says that this man just attacked him unprovoked and stabbed him, cut him. He was stabbed about 11 times. So.
Brittany Jones with Action News. Wanted to ask you, last night some of the family members were saying that, you know, they felt like the officer could have done everything but shoot him. Is there any response to that?
Sure, I just talked about it for about 5 minutes. Right there. I mean, I don't think I need to say any more than that. Again, this was not somebody standing there with a knife and they were telling him to drop the knife. I mean, as the officers approached and got close to this individual, he immediately charged, and Officer Brown's not sure when he got cut. You know, these things are very dynamic. He just realized that he was. It probably happened right from the get-go, to be honest with you. But this was an individual that was attacking an officer trying to kill him. We had an officer with a taser, and that officer deployed that taser. That was not effective. I don't believe the probes both made contact like they were supposed to, but this is a moving target, and so it didn't work out. But you know what, quite honestly, if the officer with the taser would have dropped that and pulled his pistol too, I'd have been all right with that. This is somebody that's attacking somebody trying to kill him. We don't have to try to tase those people. This officer has the right to go home at the end of the night.
And in the last couple weeks, we've seen a spike in these police-involved shootings. You figure why?
No, not really. I mean, we've had 3 in the last couple of weeks. We've had one officer that's cut badly. We've had one officer that was shot, and we had one officer that was shot at. So obviously all 3 of those were very legitimate responses to that resistance that was offered. You know, I see things from time to time. People put things out about how the police work's not the most dangerous, and they have all these stats about these other things that are more dangerous jobs. But you know what they say about statistics. What I'd say is that there are jobs out there that are dangerous because you can have an accident do them. You don't have jobs like this where it's dangerous because somebody's actively trying to kill you, and we've seen that 3 times in 2 weeks.
Just going back over kind of sequence, officer fired his rifle and then it jammed. There was a malfunction, and then fired again. Did both of those shots land?
Yeah, it looks that, yes, the suspect was shot twice in the shoulder and once in the head.
Do we know that, you know, there's tests that have to be done, but is there any evidence based on witness conversation and evidence at the scene that drugs were a factor with this individual? We
haven't gotten there yet. We may get something back, from the ME's office after an autopsy as to whether there was anything in his system, but we don't have any indication of that yet.
Any other questions? Just to clarify, did you say that it was more than one officer stabbed, or there was another victim stabbed? I just want to make sure I got that right.
There was another victim stabbed. That's what started this whole call.
I got 2 other questions. The rifle jamming, is that an issue that you've seen in any other respects with officers?
No, and we will be reviewing that to find out what happened exactly with that rifle.
And if you will, just assess how you feel your officers handled this. It sounds like it was a very tense situation, and that, you know, they did what they could to try to just assess how you feel your officers handled this.
I think they handled it very well. One of the officers during the interview was pretty impressed by how fast this all happened. Unless you've been through something like this, you don't realize how fast it happens. The officers did a lot of things they were supposed to do. They made a plan. They decided who was going to be providing lethal cover, who was going to provide less lethal cover, and then they had a 3rd officer with them there as well. They tried to follow that plan. The suspect didn't allow them to do that. The suspect forced this issue, and they reacted as they were trained. I'm just sorry that an officer had to get hurt in the process. But you know what? I stand up here sometimes. Unfortunately, I'm the guy that gets to do it. I stand up here sometimes and tell you when they did things wrong, but this isn't one of those times. They handled this like they should have.
Are Jacksonville streets getting more dangerous?
Violent crime is up a little bit. Last year was up about 1%. Our murders are up this year. We're seeing some issues, you know, and sometimes these things are up and down, and we'll see how it goes through the rest of the year. We're responding to those. We're pulling resources and moving them. You know, if you look at where we were for staffing levels in 2011, we are 147 fewer police officers today, and we don't have any of the 92 CSO officers that we used to have. So, you know, you're talking about 239 people short that we are, and so we just move the resources around and deal with these problems. But we're going to be out there. We're going to keep taking care of it.
Any other questions?
My last question, and just, is there any update on that body found near Ricker Road last night?
I don't have anything on that. I'm sorry.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you,